Testing audio stream, testing. Do what? But not too bad. Uh-huh. Could recite the Jabberwocky. 'Twas Brylig in the slithy toes. The Jabberwock from Alice in Wonderland. 'Twas Brylig. Hello. Yeah? Hello. Okay. I'm going to stay away from you so we don't feedback.
Hello and welcome to Gordon Cooper Technology Center. I was telling someone earlier, I think this is the best time of the year to have anything in this room because the views outside the window are fantastic. Even if you look out this window and you see them moving dirt, that's a sign of progress in our community, and we're glad to see that. I'm Sarah Weeks. I'm here at Gordon Cooper Technology Center, and I have the privilege of introducing our speaker today. Linda is fantastic. I saw her speak a little while ago and left the session with a lot of things that I brought back and I use for myself. So Linda is a performance strategist with a finger on the pulse of the challenging conversations teams and individuals face around the language of leadership. She focuses on values-driven performance, active feedback, and outcomes. In demand as a keynote and workshop speaker, her humorous storytelling, and I promise you, you will laugh today, encourages participation and inclusivity in audiences ranging from undergraduates to C-suite executives and boards. She combines deep experience in human resources with a passionate approach to service to deliver thoughtful programs that center exploration, adventure, vibrancy, and challenge as a path to success. Miss Linda.
Thank you. So how many did you end up with on Zoom? So everybody wave at your Zoom friends. So let's have a little tiny training session to start. Never in the history of ever have you been invited to take out your cell phone. Take your cell phones out. I know. You're like, oh, what sorcery is this? Zoom peeps, grab your phone or an extra browser window. We're going to play in an app today called Minty. It's going to allow you to participate with the screen anonymously. So you don't have to raise your hand and tell me your deepest, darkest secrets in front of strangers. It also lets the Zoom people participate. So all you're going to do is go to menti.com, M-E-N-T-I. Like if you had a whole bunch of Mentos candy, you would have a Minty, right? You're going to put in this room code at the top of the screen. I'll read it to you if you can't see it. 2549 3332. If you're holding a work phone and you're like, I don't know if my IT department will let me do this, you're not downloading anything. You're going to a website. If you're like, she really wants me to get on her mailing list, you're not giving me your name, your email, or your phone number. You're just putting that number in. When you get in, go ahead and tap that heart to let me know people are starting to be in. Down at the bottom right-hand corner, see, look at that. 25 of you tapping that heart. Good job. So same for if you're listening via Zoom, this is how you get to participate in the room. Well, what are these other buttons, Linda? Someone click on the bubble with the 3 dots and send me a comment. It's going to pop up on screen. Okay? Just, woohoo! That'll disappear so you can interact with the screen. It will not be saved. Well, what's the square thing, Linda? That's where you can ask a question. So when I get a kind of natural stopping spot, maybe while you're answering something, then I can go over there and say, oh, there's a question. All right? So there's your Minty training in 30 seconds or less. You feel good? Cool, now prove it to me. So tell me, while I wake my clicker up, look at y'all commenting. So this is a West Highland cow. If you've never met one, they're awesome. Go ahead and tell me 2 words in Minty to describe how you're feeling today. Like mine is probably tired and inspired. Because yesterday was a pretty serious Monday of Mondays. I don't know about anybody else had that. So today I'm a little tired, but I'm also like, we're in person. Strong women leaders in the room, so yay. So why a picture of a cow? Because while you're asking people to tell you stuff, you don't want to introduce bias. Right? You're like, oh, I should have picked that word. Oh, they took my word. So I covered it up. So now we can see what's coming in Minty. So excited, this is the first time I've seen excited be the big word in a year. Exhaustion has been the big word multiple times. Frustrated has been the big word. So I'm super excited to see what you're using here. So way to go in Minty. Do what? I am going to come to Shawnee more often because we had a good talk about, I tend to think y'all are like Tulsa. right? I live in Oklahoma City. I'm like, oh, Shawnee, it's like Tulsa. It's like 2 hours away. So I get in the car with Krista this morning, and I'm like ready for the road trip. I got a Slim Jim because I used to work in the oil field. We think it's breakfast, right? I have a Slim Jim and cashews. Like I can live on those two things. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the road. And like 30 minutes later, she's like, we're here. And I'm like, that's not what I was thinking. That's not even one playlist of road trip, right? So let's dig into this. You're watching this change as we go. I use Menti in webinars. And people are like, that's cool. And I'm like, I used it in person. Imagine if I needed to say to all of you as employees, these are our corporate values. Are we living up to them? How many of you know not to raise your hand in a room that includes 17 different bosses and go, absolutely not, and this is what I think we should do? You're like, I'm not doing that. But if I give you Menti, we might find out the truth, right? And then we can work on that. So, Menti training concluded. We're rolling with this. So today we're really talking about Dare to Lead. Brene Brown, raise your hand if you know who Brene Brown is. That's about the right odds. So raise your hand if you don't, because I love you, because this is like new to you, right? She wrote 4 or 5 bestsellers before Dare to Lead. The people that teach those are clinicians. They're therapists. They're social workers. That is not me, y'all, at all. Business kept kind of pushing back. Like, that's nice, but we're not going to cry at work and hug each other and, like, we're not going to do that. We're going to work. So she took it out and she said, okay, what's the future of leadership? She went into global organizations. She went places like the Wharton School of Business, the Rice School of Business. What is the future of leadership? And the answer across the board was bravery and courage, right? It's not the 1960s where what did we talk about with leadership? Authority, because I said so. That's why you'll do it, right? And some of us have worked for those people. Some of us have been those people, right? My first leadership jobs were in the late 1980s, so all my acid wash is right back in style right now, y'all. We were cool, and now we're like, I wouldn't wear that on a bed, but I sure wore it a lot in the 80s. But my leaders taught me things like, you should come to work before who? With the boss. And stay later than who? Boss. And we appreciate that there's a lunch break, but we don't take them. Oh, that PTO, that's cute. I pride myself on having not taken vacation in the last 15 years. They messaged all of that. So what did we turn into? Workaholic, perfectionist jerks that we then had to unlearn, right? So my HR career took off about 25 years ago, kept getting promoted because I'm good, right? Like technically talented. I was a jerk. World class. I liked people. I didn't understand why they didn't like me because they didn't want to be told, don't eat, don't sleep, work all the time, answer your phone at ridiculous hours, be subjected to my mood swings. So about, 12, 15 years ago, a boss called me in, said, I'd like to talk to you about your development. And I went, oh, because I'm a rock star, right? I was ready for that conversation. And he said, no more promotions for you. I went, what? Come again? And he goes, there's too much carnage in your wake. It doesn't matter how technically good you are. And I'm like, well, I've never heard of this ridiculousness. He's like, you need some people skills, and you need them fast. I'm like, well, I don't know what you mean by that. He's like, maybe that right there. Right there is what I'm talking about. So he gets me a coach that I am not at all grateful to have, y'all. Not one bit am I grateful. And she's asking me questions, and I'm being obnoxious. And about the 3rd visit, she says, tell me what you're like at home. And I went, oh, I believe we're all here for a divine purpose. I believe in compassion. I believe in mindfulness and presence. And after she picked her jaw back up, she went, why don't you do this at work? And I'm like, no one ever said I could. Like, that was the turning point, right? So I start to get it. She's like, down the road, she goes, you should go look at this Brene Brown person. Who has seen her TED Talks? Raise your hand if you've watched either one of those, like Alone and Unsupervised. That'll break you, won't it? The TED Talks, like, have 6 friends with you when you watch them. One of them is about shame. One of them is about vulnerability. And it's where I finally understood that my perfectionism was not me just believing in excellence and having high standards. It was me thinking that 100 was the only acceptable grade. and a 99 was actually what? Is a 99 a high A or is it a failure? The perfectionists in the room were like, fail. I had to unlearn those behaviors, right? So who we are is how we lead. When you are tired, exhausted, out of gas, then you teach tired, exhausted, out of gas. When you are panic-stricken and anxious, you teach that, right? When you are calm, that's just as contagious. When you are brave, that's just as contagious. But self-awareness and self-love matter, right? I walked around the room earlier, and some of you got a pop quiz, so good job. And I said, how do you get in your own way? And 5 of the 7 people I talked to talked about being not enough. Raise your hand if you have that little gremlin that parks itself in your brain. Like, hey, I wanted to come to this meeting with you today. I also have an iPad so that I can text you during the meeting and remind you you're not as much as you think you are, sister. You're not enough. Nobody wants to hear that book, that blog, that whatever it is you're dreaming about. And that's not true. That is imposter syndrome in all of its great and powerful glory. The clicker has decided to be difficult, so we might be doing a little stroll. Not going to worry about it. We'll just stroll and come back. So what did they show in the research? That courage is teachable. Who's met someone in your life that thinks courage, they're born with it? Like, raise your hand. Like, grandparents are the best for it. Granddaddies are the best for it. Like, I was born this way. Like, nah. Yeah, it's some influences. I am painfully introverted. Believe it or not. I speak on schedule, not on demand. Like, if we were at that meeting and Sarah went, oh, Linda Clark, why don't you come up here and talk about team building? I'd be like, no. That is not how this works in my brain. So painfully introverted. I'm on the autism spectrum. And I'm ADHD. There's a whole lot of reasons I should not make a living public speaking. God did not see it the same way and went, here's your purpose. And I'm like, thanks. We laughed about that on the way here. So what they went out and proved is that courage is teachable. You don't have to be born with it. You don't have to be born into the right family with the right set of privileges. Because sometimes people that say they were born brave were really just born with a lot of privilege. Privilege of skin color, privilege of gender, privilege of financial, privilege of those legacy systems that get you into the right schools, the right sororities, the right fraternities, the right networks. They forget. The 4 skill sets of courage that we are not covering in depth in 90 minutes. Y'all know this is like an out-of-control race car situation, right? I'm just going to throw stuff at you. Now, if you want to come back in June, we're doing the whole thing, and it is a deep dive for 2.5 days. And I will tell you, let me give your team credit. They have the most amazing sponsors, so they made it accessible, which was a goal for me. 2.5 days of training can normally be so expensive that people can't afford it. It's a big deal for me that they got it down to, is it 200? 200. So bear that in mind if you're like, holy cow, I want to dig into this. So number 1, rumbling of vulnerability. Raise your hand if you secretly believe vulnerability is the next worst curse word after any of the other ones. Seriously. I do this stuff for a living and I still don't like vulnerability. Now, when you're vulnerable, what do I think? No, when y'all are vulnerable, what do I think? You're so strong. It's okay. Wow, that's so amazing that you can do that. When we're vulnerable, what do we think? You spineless jellyfish, what are you crying about now? Right? That's our imposter syndrome. So what is the definition of vulnerability? Get ready with your pens, because it's not the horrible things you've been telling yourself. Everybody think about the worst traffic intersection you can think of. Probably in another city. I can't imagine Shawnee has one that's super horrible. Right? Like, you don't seem to really have a traffic problem. In Oklahoma City, mine is Northwest 63rd and the Expressway and Grand. I don't actually know what road I'll be on when I cross that intersection. I'm going to hope for the best. I think it's 63rd, but I'll fix it. And then I just kind of shoot through the intersection. That's how vulnerability works for me. So, it is the intersection of risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. And that's it. Vulnerability does not mean not having good emotional intelligence and talking too much. It does not mean oversharing. It does not mean it just risk, uncertainty, emotional exposure. So now I want you to think about that first time you told that human you loved them. Remember that? You're like, I think they're going to say it back, right? I'm pretty sure none of you are like, no chance they're going to say it back. You're like, okay, I'm going to say it, right? Have some dinner. Like I had it all planned, and then I blurted it out at a red light. It was just like, I love you. Like that's what I came up with. Is there risk when you say to that person, I love you? Sure. What if they go, well, we're friends? What if they go, well, ma'am, I'm the UPS guy, and I haven't met you before? Is there uncertainty? Even if you're 90, like you're ivory, right? 99.9% sure, that's not 100. Just like when we get asked to get married, right? They're pretty sure. I don't think they would have bought the jewelry, but could be. Is there emotional exposure? Absolutely. It is not one bit different when you tell me you want a promotion. Is there risk? What if I go, really? You think you're ready for that? And you're like, well, I did until 5 seconds ago. Now imposter syndrome's going, yeah, see, I told you you weren't good enough. And that falls in. Is there uncertainty? Sure, especially after last year, right? Like the whole world is just uncertainty. We're just all deer on thin ice right now. Is there emotional exposure once someone knows you want a promotion? You want to transfer? You want to be developed? Absolutely. So it's a lot easier for me with vulnerability to look at it from that place. It's not just me showing you my soft belly and hoping you don't stab me. Risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. So step 1 of learning courage is half the book. Who's read it? I know a couple of you had. So 4 steps, but step 1, half the book. If you come in June, step 1, all of day 1. Like that's how big it is. This is where we talk about how do you give feedback. How do you help people move through feedback? How do you figure out what you're afraid of as leaders? How do you get in your way? Talk about it a little bit today. Step 2, living into our values. I'm going to pick on you just because you've been through the training. What's one of your values? So authenticity for Krista. Mine are service and courage. When we do this work, you only get 2. You know, and you're like, well, how does that work? Because the idea is if you're going to make every decision from your values and you have 47 values, you're not running every decision through your values. I have 2, right? Apparently your ride or die is here raising her hand going, hey. She's not listening. She's not. You'll have to wave again when she turns around, right? So when you live into your values, and I know mine are service and courage, then I can go, all right, what does that mean to be at Gordon Cooper today? It means be perfectly mindful. Be in this situation with y'all now. It means tell you about mistakes I've made as a leader, right? That's brave. Does service and courage include faith? Sure. Does it include integrity? Sure. Does it include compassion? Yes. So it's not that those things don't matter to me, because people are always like, well, respect is one of mine. I'm like, you're just saying that because you want me to believe that you're a nice person, and I do believe that, so you don't have to pick respect. If I'm in service and courage, I have to show respect. So are you going to know your 2 today? No, but you can start playing with it, right? Are you going to know your 2 if you spend 2.5 days with me? Rock solid. And then you make all decisions from there. I was doing this with the women in lodging. Is anyone here a part of that group? So women that work in hotels in the industry. And they're like, well, how important do you think it is? And I'm like, if I owned a business that involved name tags, people's values would be on their name tags. That's how important it is. Like, hi, welcome to the Holiday Inn. My name is Linda Clark. I value service and courage. Hi, welcome to the Holiday Inn. My name is Krista Scamahorn. I value authenticity and making a difference or being a light. What's your other one? See, look at that. I remembered. Because friends, right? What's one of yours? Because you get a list. You don't have to have 2 yet. What's something when you put your head on the pillow at night, you're like, I'm not compromising this? Authenticity. What does that look like for you? When you're being authentic. Okay. So here comes the hard question. When you're not in authenticity, what are you doing? Okay. Do you get quiet? Do you get smaller? That's like the $1 million question for me is not always what do you do when you're in values. It's what do you do when you're outside of your values, right? Because your values don't matter if they're just posters. So like I know if I see you in a tough situation and I'm like, La, la, la. Someone else will have that conversation. Right? That is me totally not being in service and courage. I have to go, how are you doing? Is there something I can support you with? I'm in my values. La, 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 la. Not in my values. So we talk about what are your behaviors that give you the cue. Step 3 is braving trust. This is a 7-letter acronym that you're going to see today. It fixes so much stuff around trust. When you get your resource email from Kama in a few days, because we need time, right? There'll be a worksheet for you to do it with your teams and figure out which letters you're struggling with and how you're going to fix them. And the 4th step is learning to rise. It's not about not failing. There's no magic book on how to not fail. Doesn't exist. The more creative you are, the more you're going to fail. The more you try, the more you're going to fail. You just have to find your herd of other people failing. So we're like, oh yeah, see, you failed. Ready to get up? I'm here for you. We don't listen to the people outside of the arena that are like, I don't think I would have failed. And it's like, well, you're not in here, so you don't get to talk. Like, that's how big it is, right? Who is in the arena with us? So that's your 4 skill sets of courage. Well, we're just going to give up on this. Bless you. All right, so y'all are in Menti. Of those 4, now you're going to have little sliders. Notice I don't say, which one are you terrible at? I'm just asking you, where do you want to focus? So if you're like, I want to focus on rumbling with vulnerability, stronger conversations, move that to the right. If you're like, no, I'm pretty good with my values, leave that to the left. And I'll bring that picture up in a minute. If you don't know who that is, that's Dr. Sheldon Cooper of the Big Bang Theory, and now you know what to binge watch next. Because he's looking at you, right? What's your solid superpowers and what needs your focus? Same thing if you're on Zoom, go ahead and jump in there. Tell us what's going on with you. Give you just a second or two here. I'm going to check and make sure, do we have actual questions? Hello. Super cool. Tired and happy. Okay. There. Questions are cleared. So let's take a look at what's going on here. I'm going to stay here so I can play with the keyboard a little bit, because I also want you to know how to recreate this with your teams if you do it that way. So look at what we have with rumbling with vulnerability. A big part of the curve is like, oh, yep, I need to work on this. You know, about 13 of you are like, oh, I'm good over here. But you probably focused on another one. This room is pretty heavy on feeling good about your values. And I like that. Getting in deeper into them will help you. Oh, braving trust. You're like, ding, ding, ding for me. So later on, we'll do the 7 letters, and then you'll tell me which letters you want to focus on. So that when you leave here, it's not just, let's have true confessions time. Raise your hand if you've ever been to a workshop or training that you're like, this is super cool. I'm going to do this as soon as I get back. And that binder's still sitting on a shelf in your office, and it has never come off again. Right? So my goal is that you have some things like that you want to chew on, and then some, no, really, you know how to do this now. And then look at the bottom, learning to rise. You're not feeling super graceful there either, for whatever reason, right? Failure's hard. You know, I'm not here to say that that's easy. So let's talk about the barriers to courage. You get to calm down for a few minutes, and I'm not going to call on you. You should have a worksheet in your white folder, which was amazing. You want to be on the side with the barriers to courage, which most of you are not. Like, I can see it, and I'm like, you're on the back side. So now, see that little row of yellow dots on the left-hand side? That's for you to pick the 2 or 3 that get into your way. That's you judging you. See the yellow dots on the right? You can judge anybody you want to, but you have to judge yourself first. So you can judge your team, you can judge your boss, you can judge someone that you're in conflict with, and maybe try and sort out what's going on. Okay? So I'm going to check my time. When we're done with this list, you've probably rightfully guessed that you're going to go into Menti and tell me your 2 to 3 that get in your way. This is critical in understanding what's keeping you from being brave. So number 1 in the research. When we do research, we say, okay, the future of leadership's bravery and courage. Awesome. What does that look like? And they went, well, we don't know. And she's like, okay. So now you have to ask the reverse. In the absence of bravery and courage, what happens? And it's this list. In cultures where bravery and courage is not happening all the time, could be it's not happening in the moment, right? So climate instead of culture. Like Oklahoma's culture of weather is mostly stable and nice, and then a couple of times a year we got some iffy climate, right? Like ice storm, snowstorm, tornado season. So sometimes we have to separate those two. Number one, far and away, tough conversations. So get your right hand ready for true confessions. Ready? And Zoom, I want you to play along anyway. Use your Zoom hands, and maybe Kama can tell me how many come up. So raise your hand if you've had a conversation in the last 6 months that you skipped because you were trying so hard to figure out what to say. Then it took too long to figure that out. And then you're like, it's been 2 weeks. Now this feels awkward. So just put your hand in the air and leave it there. Raise your hand if in the last year you've had a conversation that you knew you should have, but it was going to take longer to clean up the emotional mess from the 5-minute conversation. And you were like, I don't have time for this. So you didn't have it, right? Keep your hands in there if you had a conversation you knew you needed to have with someone that has never exactly shown you they know how to listen. So you're just like, well, there's no point in repeating that exercise in futility. So you didn't have it. Do you see how tough conversations made the top of the list? How many of you have skipped a tough conversation at home because you wanted a peaceful weekend? I have. I'm the sports fan in the house. I'm like, we're not having a tough talk on a Friday night in hockey season because I've got games to watch, right? We don't talk during college football season because I got games to watch, right? We argue on Sunday because we can just be mad like Monday through Wednesday and that'll be fine, right? Because I got to work anyway. So tough conversations might be yours. If your brain tells you, no, it's all of it for you, your brain is lying. Do not let it tell you that. But it is 2 or 3 getting in your way pretty consistently. Second one is fears and feelings. This is when we tell people their fears are irrational, stupid, too much, and we act like that fixes things. So then what happens? Really problematic behaviors. Oh, you're scared of the new software? Why? It's going to make us more efficient. What do people hear when we go, hey, new software, more efficient? What's the real messaging underneath that our brains serve up? A lot of work because no implementation ever stayed on track, on budget, or on time. What else do we think? What? I'm going to lose my job. What was yours? Less people. Like the math really quick, right? Fears and feelings, instead of us going, tell me what you're concerned about with the software. Tell me what you're concerned about with the merger. Tell me what you're concerned about with returning to the office after work from home. Tell me what you're concerned about. Instead, we go, look, it's business and not personal, and could you kindly stop it and get over here? And it doesn't work, right? So fears and feelings. I'll give you an example where we implemented a software system, did the training. We wanted the payroll person to actually learn to be a compensation person, which is good money, very in demand. But what she heard was new software, not going to need you. Right? We didn't take into account she was kind of a homegrown HR person. So not a college degree, not a lot of certification, but a rock star. We just heard she was scared and went, that's silly. So she didn't come to the training. So payroll starts running. It runs beautifully, but it doesn't run faster. And they call and they're like, could you figure this out? And I'm like, of course I can. I'm smart. So I go down there and I'm like, hey, how's the new system? Oh, it's great. It's fine. Y'all know that's not a good sign, right? It's great, it's fine, like, no. I'm like, well, tell me how it's going because it's not really going faster. Well, I don't trust it. Tell me more. Write those 3 words down, right? Those are coaching. There's 6 words I use in coaching. Tell me more, period. My other one is, and what else? Oh, and what else? Tell me more about that. What else? Like it just goes on for hours. And she goes, well, I don't trust it, so what I do is just do it my old way. And then I upload it. And I'm like, okay. So I'm hyperventilating at this point. This system had millions behind the price tag, right? I'm like, what do you mean? So show me the old way. I stay curious, right? Lean in, stay curious. And she goes, well, I have an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, cool, Excel. This is good. She opens it. There's not a formula in it. It's just an Excel document. It's just fancy graph paper. She's putting everyone in manually. every 2 weeks, manually entering 400 time entries, 400 names, 400 pay rates. The fact that payroll's running correctly is like, this is amazing. And I'm like, okay, and then what? And then she pulls out a solar calculator. Who remembers those when we were giving swag away like 7 years ago? Beat up solar calculator, and she adds up the 400 lines twice. And once she trusts that number, she uploads it to the multi-million-dollar system. And I'm sitting there like, fears and feelings. She was afraid of losing her job. She was afraid that we weren't serious about educating her. She was afraid, and none of us spent the time with her to make her unafraid. Because we just want to go, you're an adult, get it over it. Doesn't work. Corrosion of trust. Raise your hand if you have a high performer working with you. Like a rock star that if they texted you right now and said, I'm leaving, you would walk out of this room and call them. See, it helps you think about it that way. If you have a person in your life that if they texted you right now that they were leaving, you would be like, and I am too. Okay? This is the one that gets in their way. Corrosion of trust is killing high performers. Raise your hand if you have a low performer somewhere in your world that you're like, I don't know how they're still here. You know why? And people go, I don't trust them. I'm like, why don't you give them more work? I don't trust them. I'm like, tell me why you don't trust them. Well, they always let me down, and they never do what they say they're going to do. And I'm like, oh, you absolutely trust them to be a low performer. You're like, there you go. Be your low performer self. Thanks. Then who do we go bother? And they are already drowning. But we know they'll say what? Yes. And do it. Because we all have the people in our life that say yes, and then they forget, and we don't call them anymore, right? So corrosion of trust is like rust. Krista says yes, 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 yes to me until she's got 72 plates in the air, and finally she drops a plate. And we go, oh. You know, Krista's normally so good, but last week she didn't return my call. And you go, you know, that's funny you should mention that. Krista's normally so good, and last week she didn't answer my email. And then it's time for us to do succession planning, and Krista's name comes up, and one of us goes, maybe she needs another year to mature. She's not really reliable. That is how corrosion of trust happens. It's like spots of rust. One phone call, one email, one follow-up, one little kind of goofy moment where you came to the meeting and didn't bring what you were supposed to bring, turns into 5, turns into 10. For some of you in the room, this is the one that you're like, any minute I'm going to drop a plate and everyone's going to know. It's our job to go, 72 plates is too many. Give me a couple of plates. You know what? Do those 5 first. Stuck in setbacks? Ready for raise your hand again? We're going to do this together because this is one of mine, okay? You have a mistake you made in the last 6 months chewing in your brain a little bit? Just raise your hand. Could have been this tiniest little mistake. It's just hanging out on your desk, like your stapler, your bottle of water, and your mistake. Hey! Just wanted you to know, just wanted to remind you in case you were feeling competent today, you did do this recently, and it could happen again. Keep going if you've got one that's 1 to 3 years old. Maybe it's in the top desk drawer. It's not sitting right on top anymore. But every now and then, like pop goes the weasel. You open the desk drawer, and all you wanted was a Post-it note, but what you get is, remember that time? Remember the last time you went to a board meeting and forgot what to say? Remember the last time you were in surgery and didn't have the implement you were supposed to have? Remember the day you walked into surgery and forgot to scrub? You know, we were laughing in the bathroom a while ago because I did a sound check in here before I went in the bathroom with a microphone because that has happened to people before. So stuck in setbacks. Who's got a mistake that's more than 10 years old that sometimes it's like at the bottom of your purse with the old lifesavers? And it goes, hey. If you've been married more than once, I assure you, it's hanging out, right? My husband and I are both on number 3. This one has stuck because we had the training ground. But we didn't get married for the first 15 years because what did we think? I'm bad at being married. First of all, I didn't even remember there was another human in the other marriages. Nope, it wasn't them, it was me. I am bad at being married, so I wouldn't get married again. Until he finally didn't ask. He's like, we're getting married on December 17th. You should pick out a dress and some jewelry. Like, that was the romance of it after 15 years. And then we did, right? Lack of innovation. This is yours if you've ever had bright ideas here, but they didn't come out of your mouth or your fingertips because working from home, right? Didn't come out into an email. There is so much innovation in our business that we don't know exists. We're not asking the right people. We're not making it safe for them to answer. So it's causing a problem with, courage. I watched managers last year that no one knew existed rise into superstardom with empathy and connection and listening. I watched leaders people thought were superstars publicly fall apart with 8-hour Zooms that people had to be present and sitting like old school punch the clock. Can y'all imagine? 8 hours of Zoom, not like, oh. Problem solving and action bias. Tell me what your panic response is when that email comes in, that text, and you go, oh, I'm supposed to answer. Holy cow, I forgot. So for me, it's what's yours? Is it the gasp? Because I literally just go, and then I start typing so fast. I'm not thinking at all. I just want you, I got it, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. Half sentences. What are your clues? Shout out some clues. And put them in Zoom chat. What are your clues that you have left the problem-solving calm bus and climbed on the panic and anxiety freight train? What's yours? What does your body do that you're like?
I think I get overwhelmed with maybe critical things, and I just temporarily stop. I'm not able to concentrate.
So you're just like, wah! Okay, someone else, so that one, she feels comfortable and not alone. What are your cues that you are not on the calm problem-solving bus at this point? Like the nice shallow, like we're just suddenly breathing up here like a bird, right? Like we haven't seen our diaphragm in months. Like we're just like, sound like the dog. Someone's going to throw me a biscuit any moment, right? Who's got the red face that gives you away? Because I don't have that, thankfully. Like, oh, do you have that? So you're in your meeting trying to be cool, but you're enraged, and then your face does the little, just wanted everybody to know. What's another one? Whose tummy gets the little knot down here? You're like, oh, I ate a basketball for lunch. That's awesome. What are other signs? Little snippy and short. And then if someone tells you you're being snippy and short, or like, hey, calm down, you're like, oh, you thought I wasn't calm. Watch this. Boom. Right? Just so you can appreciate how calm I was a minute ago when you are not grateful for that. What are other ones? Twitchy. So you start fidgeting. Are you the pen clicker? I've walked through meetings and been like, give me that. Like an elementary school teacher, because I just can't handle the noise. So that's a big deal. Einstein said if he had an hour to solve the problem, he'd spend 55 minutes in problem solving. We're going the exact other way. What we did is we turned every problem into a fire, and if they're all on fire, you can't prioritize anymore. Oh, yeah, and sometimes I can see them up here, and sometimes I can't. So isn't that comment function cool, where you can be like, this is what I'm thinking? So I'll keep an eye on those. And apparently my 53-year-old eyes can't see them on those, so y'all might have to tell me sometimes. Diversity, equity, and inclusivity. The research showed if you are still unwilling to have these conversations in as little as 5 years, you will no longer be leading. Like the time is now. And we have to have these discussions. And are we going to be able to dig into this in 90 minutes? No. But what came up in the last year, right? We're now really starting to talk about not just inclusivity, but belonging. How do I belong in this culture? So if you've not done any work around pronouns, that could make me feel like I don't belong. If you are making comments about race and gender and microaggressions and things we don't even know have roots in racism, okay? Everyone here has words that we know, like don't say that in public, like don't say that anywhere, clean your mouth up. How many of you have heard someone say, I got gypped? Raise your hand if you've ever had someone feel like they got ripped off, okay? Do you know that's an ethnic slur? Right, huh? Gypsy. So the Romani people are often slurred into the word gypsy. When we talk about gypsies, we talk about what? Fortune telling and what else? What are other stereotypes about gypsies? Stealing. Do what? Right, like there's all these things, right? So when you say you got gypped, you're saying I got ripped off by a gypsy. So, but people don't know it anymore. How many of you have heard the phrase grandfathered in? We have a new policy. It's not going to apply to you because you work here already. You are grandfathered in. Do you know that has roots in Jim Crow laws and systemic and structural racism? So I would encourage you to Google like modern business terms with like gross beginnings. Because I've had to start breaking the habit of, one of my favorite terms was peanut gallery. Really unfortunate, oppressive roots. So now I'm working on not saying it. So here, where are you recruiting? How are you recruiting? What neighborhoods are you recruiting in? What is your messaging? What are you saying to employees at work? Do you have special interest groups? Because it's one thing to say we value teamwork, but then when I look and go, but there's nobody there that looks like me. Nobody there that looks like you. Nobody there that talks like me, right? Dress codes that might be trying to get people to not be their authentic selves, right, in the name of professionalism. So this button is really important. And we just have to be willing to be wrong and be educated, right? Like as an HR person, when someone was finally like, grandfathered in, a little problematic, instead of me being bristly and going, well, that's how we've always done it, I can learn better and do better. So each of us has to have that commitment. Shame and blame. How does shame show up at work? Who's brave enough to tell me like a situation, not the whole story, but just what at work can cause shame? Who's missed a deadline? Who's forgotten an email? Who's emailed the wrong person? Right, like Outlook's like you type in LI and suddenly it emails me and you're like, that's not Belinda, I really needed to see that email. So shame and blame show up at work in gossiping, bullying, harassment, discrimination, even in good cultures. In the research, the good cultures didn't have tough conversations. And she's like, well, what do y'all do? And they're like, we talk about each other behind our backs because we're nice. That's the difference between nice and kind, right? It's not nice to talk about me behind my back. You're not saving me from anything. Gauzy values. Who remembers the Successories posters, which I actually love and adore, like beautiful picture of the mountains and integrity, right? And there's integrity eagle, bald eagle flying across the mountains. Integrity eagle, caw-caw. Like if I'm a liar and I pass the integrity eagle poster, I'll be like, oh, I get it now. I am an integrity eagle. Caw-caw. So when we say gauzy values, it's we believe in respect, and then you have managers that yell at people. We believe in teamwork, but yet I see you advertising all your jobs on Indeed because you don't promote from within. We believe in diversity, and yet there's the panel of what? Does anybody remember the Canadian Diversity Conference 3 years ago? With the 12 white males over 50? That was the panel. And we were like, so someone else should be teaching this. So are you making space for diversity, equity, and inclusivity? And we're all watching. I don't know about you, but I paid attention to the businesses last year that suddenly got engaged and were like, ooh, we believe. I'm like, what are you doing now? What are you doing in 2021 that you believe? And then perfectionism. Y'all thought you were going to get away. But here it is in its shining glory, yours. Mine are stuck in setbacks and perfectionism. Imagine when I'm trying to do something new, how that combo can work. I'm entering my doctoral program in April. 2 weeks, y'all. I'm in my last 2 weeks of just going, I'm a doctoral student and looking well-rested and well-fed because it hasn't started, right? Orientation is in 2 weeks and then it's over. I'm just going to be gray and drawn and more wrinkled for the next 3 years. I'm terrified that I won't be perfect. Do I need to be perfect? Right, I see you going, no. And then to yourself, what do? Yeah, we meant you, Linda. You don't have to be perfect. But me, I'm still going to hurt myself doing it. So there's your list. Pick your 2 or 3. You're getting ready to tell me about them in Menti. So how do you use this with your team? You'll have this worksheet in your resource email. Ask them the same thing. Let me tell you what won't work. What's your name? Yours. Either one of you. Emily. hey, Emily, I was at this workshop today, and we did the barriers to courage, and I figured mine out, and then I figured yours out too. And I thought I'd share it with you. That will not go well. You do what I did. I told you what they are. You get to tell me what yours are. I told you what mine are to create trust. So put them up there in Menti. What are your 2 to 3 that get in your way? We got about 19 of you responding already, which is amazing. Whoop. And then I hit the wrong button. So this is what's going on for y'all. That's why I love Menti. Instead of me just going, this one's important, you get to see what does this room and our Zoom friends think. Y'all are struggling with tough conversations. And we knew that because you raised your hands, right? But look at the perfectionists in the room. Like you're like, you didn't even give us enough room. Because that's what perfectionists do. They call me afterwards and they say things like, you got a typo on page 72. And I love you for it, because then we talk about it. A perfectionist one day gave me the feedback of, well, you just don't care about quality. And I'm like, okay, no. I'm hyper aggressive, I'm super competitive, and I want to win. But here's what we lie to ourselves about. Performance management. How many of you have performance management at work? Like reviews, okay? Is it 1 to 5? Is that pretty much the universal system, right? So 1 to 5, we're like 5. A 3 is meets expectations until you give me one, and then what do I say? Did you just call me average? Right? That's how it works. You got a 3, meeting expectations, solid in position. You should be really oh, I'm a 3? Wait a minute. A 4 exceeds expectations consistently. A 5, to get a 5 out of me, you're a 4, that creates more 4s. So if you're selfish and you don't help other people and you're a rock star, that's awesome. You're a 4. You're never going to get a 5 out of me. 5s bring other people with them. So, but with perfectionism, we don't count 5s. We only count 100s. What does this look like? Growing up, my mother was an English teacher. I still have her. She's amazing, and I'm fortunate. And she's like, are you ever going to quit talking about me at workshops? And I'm like, no, because I don't have children for you to put the mother's curse on me. So I'm just going to talk about you. But she knew all my teachers. What grade do you get when you are the child of an English teacher? What is the acceptable grade range? A. That's it. But then she would call my teachers and go, well, what was Linda's average? And then over dinner, she would go, that was a 9. What do you think you could have done better? She thought she was helping me improve. What she was teaching me was a profound level of perfectionism. She was teaching me that A's don't matter. Only 100s matter. So when I came out into the workforce, you know how much fun I was to coach? If I thought everything that wasn't perfect was awful, imagine how my coworkers felt if everything that isn't perfect just sucks. Like, you suck, you suck, you suck. That's why I didn't have any friends, right? So we have to stop telling the lie. When I'm teaching my undergrads, what is an A? 90 to 100 is an A. Gave a student a 98 a couple of semesters ago, and she sent me this long email that I did not read that involved, like, how could I be better? And I'm like, you can't. A 98 is amazing. I'd really like for you to go out and have a social life and not lose your boyfriend, because that's also part of life. She needed to hear that from me. Not, well, maybe next time, watch your It's a 98. It was full of amazing thought. Some sketchy formatting. So she lost a couple of points. But amazing thought. I don't want to kill that. What would happen if I had said, well, it was your commas and your spelling? What's going to happen with the next paper? Right. There'll be tons of commas and no good content, because she'll be all freaked out about the commas. So are you driving that? I want healthy striving. There are things you do on a day-to-day basis that a C is plenty. Take the trash out. C. Get it near the curb. Doesn't have to be pretty. You don't need to wash your trash can. No one cares. C. What's something in your house that could be a B? Your kitchen on a Wednesday afternoon. It's not Christmas. No one's showing up tonight. Your kitchen can be a B. We don't want health hazards. Doesn't have to be perfect. I encourage you to go back and look at your task list this afternoon and really ask yourself, what tasks really do need to be an A? So accounting and finance, raise your hand if you're in here. Banking. We want y'all to be pretty close to perfect on those balances, right? That's not a C. Don't get 70% close to what I think I have in the bank. But you know what? When I go in the bank and there's 2 tellers and there's a line, that's okay. You don't need to have 900 people to do my whim the moment I think of it. So teach people. Sometimes a C is perfectly good. If I ask you for a first draft, hey, on Thursday, I need to see the deck for the board. It's a first draft. Just pencil it together in PowerPoint and bring it to me. That's all I want to see. You're over there trying to build the most perfect board deck ever for round 1. You've built a board deck, hasn't she? She's back there laughing like, busted. But that's not what I asked for. And then it's late because you tried to give me more than I asked for. So be careful that you're not doing that to yourself. Take a break here. Anyone surprised by what's up here? Anyone want to openly share theirs and tell me, like, what was your combo, and let's talk about it for a second? Who's that brave? I told you mine. Go for it. Okay, so you go from problem solving to action bias, like fire, fire, fire.
Actually, I do exactly the opposite.
Okay, tell me about this.
When all things hit the fan, then I just need to go by myself because I'm the only one who can figure it out.
All right, true confessions. How many of you have done an actual team project all by yourself rather than deal with the pain of a team? Turn around and look at all your friends. You are not alone, right? So now what you get to tell me is about what you're seeing in others. Now you get to judge other people. What are you seeing around you in your teams, your families, at the grocery store, in your communities? Kevin, we go to 1:30, right? Okay, I'm like, These are never identical. Always the attendees are harder on themselves. Then when I ask you to look out at other people, we're seeing a lot more fears and feelings. We're seeing a lot more noticing lack of innovation. We're seeing a lot more, you're noticing shame and blame, but you're like, that's not happening to me. And that's fine because you're like, perfectionism is happening to me. But this is how you do it with a team. You don't have to use Menti. Put up a flip chart or a dry erase board, but leave the room. Leave it up for a few days so they can come by and just check their responses. Just like I didn't make you. We're only 47 minutes into this. We don't have the trust for you to just open it. Now, when we're in a room for 2.5 days, we're just talking. We're like, yep, did this, it was boneheaded. Yep, said that, sure did. But it takes time, right? That wouldn't be fair to me to ask it of you right now. So that barriers to courage is the very first piece today. Then we have the arena, then we have the braving acronym. If you've read Dare to Lead and you're like, I didn't see those, it's in the introduction. Because I'm that person that doesn't read the introduction. I think you're thanking your spouse, right? And someone's telling me how awesome you are. So I'm just like, chapter one, chapter one, chapter one. So those are in the introduction. So if you're familiar with her work, you've heard her use the arena analogy. So the Franklin Roosevelt quote, it's not the critic that counts, but the man in the arena whose face, even though marred by dust, blood, and sweat, even though he fails daring greatly, because Roosevelt was binary, right? We won't talk about really gender then. So she uses this. So I want you to think about the last time you tried something brave. Tried something new. I don't care if it was a yoga class or bungee fitness, which is super cool. Asked for a promotion, went to a board meeting and presented, asked someone to marry you. I don't know. The arena is where we are when we're being brave. What does yours look like? Now, you probably don't have that answer now. That's not an overview answer. So some people picture being, what if you're in the middle of that arena right now, there, a concert, like a Garth Brooks concert, and there you are trying something new with 80,000 of us judging you. We're waving, we've got opinions, right? Everyone here has coached TV before, right? You've taught a football team how to play football, even though you have no skill set, right? Told them how to play basketball, told them how, whatever. So recently, someone I know defended their dissertation. So their arena looked like the room of judgment of their committee. You might be a rodeo fan. Your arena might feel like you're out there in the sand with a bronking bull around you and you're trying not to die. I want you to get it in your brain. Like, what do you picture? I'm going to walk you through mine to give you a little more of it. And then that second one, how does it feel when you're in the arena? When you're trying something new? When you're walking into that meeting for the first time? Who's been promoted in your career? How did that Monday feel? Like Friday you were wholly qualified at your old job? Monday you come to work in your new office? Had that little moment of like, sooner or later they're going to figure out I don't actually know what I'm doing, and then I'll go back to the job I was good at. That's the arena, right? The thing is, when you go in the arena and you look for the opinions of people that are not in the arena, they're going to tell you what you're doing wrong. And they're not brave enough to be in the arena. They don't get to give you feedback. Now, they might be an authority, so you're going to smile and go, and write it down. Don't go, Linda Clark said I don't have to listen to you anymore, and then call me when you don't have a job. Okay, so remember that. But you have to make sure that you're not asking the most conservative human being that's been at the same job for 40 years, married to the same person, living in the same house. They've never done anything new. You don't go to them and go, what do you think about, I'm going to go open my own business. And they're like, don't ask them. They're not in the arena. You call a me, you call a Krista, you call some other fierce woman in this room and go, all right. So when you think about your arena, make yourself some notes and come back to it, right? Get a Menti and tell me which 4 things, if you could have your team improve in 4 things, would change your team instantly. So same for Zoom. Y'all come on into Menti. Oh, it says it can take. Hang on. Is it working? Okay, so as long as it's happy. So the thing is here, I just want you to tell me if you could have 4 of these like in a grab bag as you went out the door and give them to your team and they immediately applied them, what 4 would change? Let's see what we come up with, see if we see any trends here. I'm going to grab my water. So Zoom, I know you can't see me for a second because I have a box up here. This is nicely distributed. Good. We've already talked about things today that impact every one of these for you to start working on them. So it looks like you've got some pretty resilient teams, and yay for having teams that are working in ethics and values, and it looks like diversity and belonging is going well in here. And looks like we would like a little more bravery and some new thought. Y'all are looking for this, great, I know that's how we've always done it, but I really do want to know what you think. And how do we drive that, right? So when we talk about the arena, thank you for that. Also, if you're wondering, you're going to get these slides, right? I'm going to download them because it will also include the Menti responses so that you can circle them and come back to comments and things. So you'll get all of this, all right? So there's 5 things that keep us from going into the arena. I want you to think of something right now that you're planning to try in the next 6 months. Could be a work project, new challenge, an implementation. Could be a hobby. Could be a blog you're starting. Could be a book you're going to write. Could be a baby you're going to have. I don't know. I want you to think of something that you're like, that's an arena, all right. I'm a little bit nervous. Because these 5 things keep us outside of our arena. This picture hangs in my office. I use this picture for my arena because I don't actually care about what the arena looks like once I'm in it. I care about the steps in getting in there. So I picked this because if you've ever been to New Orleans, right, that's like an old New Orleans cemetery gate. Can't y'all hear it creaking? Like it's open, but I'm like, there could be ghosts up there. I can't see what's up there. Like I will look at that picture and physically be like today's the day I'll be able to see. It's got really worn stairs to remind me I've made it up those stairs plenty of times. Sometimes successful, sometimes not. There's also grass growing on the stairs to remind me, have you done something lately? Or did you get complacent? Have you tried something new? So that's why I love this picture for my arena. My gremlins, you really need to get this in your head, are about this tall. mid-thigh. They kind of look like gargoyles, but they have troll hair, super big claws. Because they like to grab my dress as I go by and go, get back over here. Shh. I'm trying to protect you. I just want to help. So your gremlins aren't going away. There's nothing in this work that says you'll never feel shame again. The difference is I'm like, hey, shame, see you, and I'm going anyway. Hey, scarcity, I see you, and I'm going anyway. It's not that they go away. So now I just kind of picture them like little punk gargoyles going, fine. You just go. Do they laugh at me? Sometimes. That's okay. Shame. Who do you think you, oh, really? You're going to go to a yoga class? Really? When was the last time you did some yoga? How do you think this is going to work for you? Oh, you're going to go back to the gym. Do you know where it's even located? Oh, you're going to go to the gym 6 days in a row and you haven't been in 10 years. Uh-huh. I'll be sitting right over here with anxiety and uncertainty when you wake up tomorrow morning and can't move. So shame is very much, who do you think you are? And if you get brave enough to walk past that, it'll really push on your, like, not enough. And several of you told me that ahead of time. So I know you're like, oh, she just called me out. Scarcity. What do you not have enough of? Not enough what? Not enough time? Not enough money? Not enough support? Not enough energy? So that's how scarcity will be like, no, other people have time for that, but you don't. You need to sit down and answer that hot mess of an email account. Scarcity to me almost sounds like a Cinderella thing, right? If you're really good, you get all your chores done, you can go to the ball. And I've learned scarcity doesn't actually allow that metric to be achieved. No matter what I do, it'll give me one more thing and go, no, not yet. Not yet. Not yet. It's why our remodels get out of control at our houses. Because scarcity is like, well, while you're in here, why don't you go ahead and put a new bathroom in? You know? And while the bathroom's being put in, can't have old paint in the bedroom, right? Suddenly you have an $80,000 project. Fear. Raise your hand if you've been afraid of achieving what you wanted to get in the arena for. You're like, what if I get what I want? What if I get the promotion? What if I do a TED Talk? What if people watch it? She has never watched her videos. She has a TED Talk with 60 million views she's never seen. And we're all like, how do you get feedback? She's like, I don't care. I was like, that's really powerful. She realized when she watched herself on video, she was saying things like, you're old. You shouldn't have worn that outfit. Those pants make me look fat. And she goes, it's not serving the work, so I don't do it anymore. That was my question for 2020. How is this serving my work? So if I trash talk myself, how is this serving the work? If I didn't try something new, how is this serving the work? You might have different questions, but I love that for 2020. What the year that was for it, right? Anxiety. Now, this comes with a disclaimer. It's a huge deal for me to not participate in mental health stigma. This is not diagnosed anxiety. I am not here to tell you, if you try hard enough, you can just move right past it. That's not cool. If you have diagnosed anxiety, I want you to take your meds and see your therapist and do what you can to take care of yourself. This is the anxiety we add, the icing on the cake anxiety. There's no reason at all for this anxiety, but you just thought, oh, this would look so much better with a side order of a whole bunch of anxiety. Who remembers dating that person that you ended up in a really good relationship with? And like date number 3, it's going super well. There's no drama. You're like, I'm having a lovely time. I bet they're an axe murderer. I bet, because I didn't do a background check. There's the perfectionist in me, right? I didn't call 93 friends and tell them I'm on a date. Holy cow, that's what I mean. Now that you have that definition, raise your hand if you've just served up a side helping of anxiety when it wasn't. Krista's like, yep, right, got out your Pyrex, your casserole dish, and you're like, oh, I brought some anxiety for the potluck. Goes with scarcity and shame, in case you didn't have enough. So be careful there. Anxiety right now we're seeing, return to work. Anxiety, are we opening too fast? Anxiety over, like, I know people in Colorado that are sick that haven't gotten a vaccine yet. They're not eligible because of how Colorado did it. And I'm like, look, I'm one shot in, got another one Wednesday, and the whole state is open. Like, we're doing it right. So yay. And if you're here and a part of that, thank you for what you're doing to get us vaccinated. So, and then uncertainty. Who knows that person? They're brave as long as they know they'll win. Yeah, I put my hat in for the promotion, and you're like, yeah, we all know. You've told us for a year it was going to be you, right? Like, way to go on that big challenge. So uncertainty, you just have to know. The first challenge is you got to get up the steps. It doesn't matter what you do in the arena. If you don't get in the arena, there is no battle. So when you think about those 5 things, you're getting ready maybe in 2 slides to tell me which one gets in your way, maybe in one after this. So this is how it shows up at work. Now, we'll spend a lot of time on this in the 2-day. Does anyone see one jump out that you're like, I don't know what that is. Tell me what that is. Mm-hmm. That's in the meeting when they go, does everybody agree with the idea? And we go, mm-hmm. Because I have a 105 outlook I got to get to. Like, whatever you want, I just need to leave this meeting. And then 5 minutes later, we're like, you don't really think that's the final budget, do you? You didn't really think that was the right idea, did you? And we have to go, you know what? You should have said that in the room. You have to not let people, and teenagers, anybody raising a teenager? It's the dirty yes years. Yes, I'll clean my room. Yes, I'll come home on time. Yes, I'll remember to empty the dishwasher. No, they won't. But I assure you it will come back at some point, right? Mainly when they're off the payroll, so no time soon. What's another one that jumps out for you? Oh, you know what? I've been here 20. Now, I know you're new, but, some of us have been here a really long time. And it was just so good 20 years ago, 40. I'm like, look, I love horses, but I don't want to ride one to work. I just keep them at home, right? Because what happens when people start going, remember when? We're like, when women weren't in your oil field? That when? When black and brown people didn't work with you? Is that the remember when? When pronouns were easier before we really understood gender isn't binary? Is that what you remember? People have really selective memories about what they remember. So when they're telling me they missed the 1950s Mad Men kind of action where everybody's smoking and drinking at work and it was all guys, I'm like, what you really missing? I think our little thing is getting ready. Yep, that's its little sign where it's like, I can't even with you. Okay, but I know how to fix it now, if I remember. So we escaped, right? We went back to the little window thingy. How's that for technical? We did this. The color changed. I can't remember jack, but if I have a process, I can follow it. Okay, so that's nostalgia, remember when. So we have to be careful. We're seeing a lot of that right now. Because what do people want? They want March 18th, 2020. And we need to remind them. So notice I haven't said unprecedented, and I won't say new normal. What we need to remind people of is that their track record of handling change, they're champions. Because in Alice in Wonderland, Alice says, there's no reason for me to go back to yesterday. I'm not the person I was. We have to stop acting like change is something that happens to us. Change is where we live. And we do a really good job of handling it. We got an extra serving of it last year, like we value sized on accident, right? And we, oh, no, not that much. Any other ones jumping out at you? Power over, you'll do it because I said so. Right? That's our moms. This is not a democracy. That's what my mother said for years. And then once I moved out, she gave me a cross stitch that says, always my daughter, now to my friend. Because when I was 18 and under, she would say, I'm not your friend, I'm your mother, and this is not a democracy, right? So, there we are talking about my mom again. The invisible army is the other one some people struggle with. That's your employee that comes up to your desk and goes, so I wanted to come talk to you. Well, we have some concerns about the new policy. We're not sure we understand what you mean by park in the last 3 rows. Could you explain that to me? Notice all the weeing? There is no we. You can go, you got a mouse in your pocket. You can say, you and who else? What it is we are scared. I'm scared I don't understand the policy. I might be feeling stupid that I don't understand the policy. I might be afraid that I missed the training that you said was mandatory, mandatory, mandatory in red, all caps, and underlined in the email, and I went optional and didn't go. So now I'm worried, right? Kids are really good at the invisible army. There's an amazing YouTube of a little boy. He's about 2. He's drawing on the mirror with his mommy's lipstick, and it's like an Yves Saint Laurent lipstick. It's like a $32 lipstick. And she comes out, and she's like, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. He's British, and I can't do British, so I don't know how this is going to sound. And she goes, who drew on the mirror? And that kid doesn't miss a beat. He's covered in lipstick and got it in his hand. Batman. And sticks with it. And I have 25 years in HR. I have been in those investigations where that little kid was like, it was Batman. I don't know what to tell you. Did anyone else see Batman? No, I'm not sure. How do you know it was Batman? Well, I don't really know. And we're mad. So that's that one. And I see y'all giggling because you're like, oh, yeah, I've seen that at work. All right, so you tell me about your arena gremlins and Minty. We're going fast, so we stay on time. Just the 2, or I think I allowed 2. I might have allowed you 3. Of the 5, which one really grabs you when you're trying something new? And I put that jack-o'-lantern in at Halloween, and I think he's like the spookiest jack-o'-lantern ever. So he just got to stay. So I'm interested in what's holding you back? Check my questions, see if we got anything there. Okay. All right. This has been a major change in the last year. When I did this in early 2020 and in 2019, it would be shame and scarcity. People didn't want to admit they didn't know. They didn't want to ask for help. They didn't think their boss would, back them up. Shame and scarcity, shame and scarcity. COVID has flipped this to anxiety and uncertainty because people are just treading water and they're tired, right? They're tired of going, is that land? They're just like, I just need it to be land and go there. So remember that. You're a strong room and phone call full of women leaders that are feeling this. And the people around us are feeling it. And in some cases, they put us on pedestals. So the fact that we're feeling it scares them more. Because they're like, no, you always have it together. So when we finally fall apart, they're like, oh, this is Armageddon. Right? So great work there in the arena. When we go really deep into the arena in June, we talk about who's sitting in the stands. Some of your baggage, old bosses, teachers that might have told you talk too much, right? They come to your games, right? And we could, instead of looking around our arena and going, there's my loving spouse that always thinks I'm good. No. We find the person that talked about us 10 years ago that we've not even seen. And we worry about what they think. I had a friend post on Facebook last night. Someone hurt his feelings. It happens, right? And he's like, how do you handle this? And I said, you know what? I think about life in a bell curve. If I have 10 people in front of me, chances are good that 5 or 6 of you are like, she's probably a decent human being. 1 or 2 are probably like, she's pretty cool. I'd like to go have drinks with her. And 1 or 2 of you are like, if I never see her again, that's good. And for years, I tap danced around trying to make the 1 or 2 that didn't like me until I just went, I'm going to love on the 7 or 8 that like me. And those other 2 will find other people they like. And it'll be okay. And I stopped worrying about it. So, what gets us to the top of the stairs is love and belonging and joy. Which no one was talking to Linda about in the 1980s. Right? No one called me and I was like, I just love that you're here. It's important to me that you feel like you belong. Do you see people? Are you making friends? How's your weekend? How's your kid? No one was saying that stuff. Do you remember earlier when I said what 4 would help your business now? It's all the stuff on the left side. It only comes from love and belonging and joy. You cannot get inclusivity and equity from scarcity and shame. You cannot get good decision making from anxiety. And you know what? You better hope you get it right if you want to keep that job. You better be grateful you still have a job. I know you're worried about all those people that lost their jobs if you want to keep yours and not join them. And I've heard those things over the years, You should be grateful you still have a job. I'm like, well, I'm not so grateful I have 3 jobs, right? Because you laid 2 people off and then you gave me their jobs. And not their salary or their benefits. And I'm noticing this. And that happens sometimes, and it's hard. So when you think about that other side of the screen in your business, in your team, in your family, it only comes from love and belonging and joy. Love is, look, the first time I presented to a board, I forgot what I was saying in the middle of it. If you forget, just take a deep breath, gather yourself, take a sip of water, and try again. If you get scared, look at me. I promise I will look back at you and nod my head, and you will be okay. That's the important thing, right? It's not the, you're being silly. Everything will be fine. That's not actually an empathetic response. You're minimizing me. If I experience someone hurts my feelings at work and you're like, I just think you're being sensitive. I've never had that problem with them. Well, goody two shoes for you. But I did. So we create disconnection. Tell me about some takeaways from the arena as we switch into the Braving acronym. What are your thoughts about the arena real quick? Because I just want to hear your voices. Kim, if anyone on Zoom wants to throw a comment in chat about their takeaways so far, will you read those to me? Zoom peeps, what are your takeaways so far? Have a great day. You can tell when people have to go. Yeah. Yep. And that's so powerful. The thing I would tell you that would be really powerful when you get back to your offices this afternoon, I want you to write down one piece of garbage feedback you got in your life that you've been hanging on to. That wasn't feedback. It wasn't meant to make you better. It was meant to make you smaller or better behaved or get back in your box. And then I want you to have the utter joy of tearing it up into 50 million shreds and tossing it in the air or run it through the shredder or ball it up or whatever will let you let go of it. And realize they weren't in the arena. You don't need to hang on to that anymore. So that's important. Go ahead. And sometimes I sit in the middle, right? I get halfway up and I'm like, all right, I'm a little afraid. I'm going to sit here with my gremlins. Sometimes I go back down the stairs and think, and then I go up. Sometimes I go charging up because I know if I stop and think about it at all, I'll quit. But for me, that's been more powerful. She likes the Roman Colosseum picture, like sand and tigers and stuff. Whatever works for you. So when we talk about clear as kind, raise your hand if you've ever been talked to in your entire career about being direct or abrupt or whatever it was. While a guy sat next to you and was told what a strong communicator he was. Happens, right? So that's part of our work. Clear is kind, not nice. Nice is this bless your heart stuff we do. Bless her heart. Nice. Kind is you have spinach in your teeth and should go to the bathroom. Nice is not, well, I'm not going to tell her. Don't do that to me, right? If my slip's showing or my spinach or whatever, I want you to tell me. If I'm stepping on someone at work and I don't realize it, I want you to tell me. I want to have a talk about it. Because if they're a crybaby, I'm going to tell you that too. See, this is why I end up with coaches. But clear is kind. You know what? I love you being on this team, and I want you to be successful. And repeating what you did today is career limiting. That's 8 seconds of very kind feedback. They should know, if you do that again, I won't be able to save you. They should know, hey, you know what? You're a high performer. You're actually amazing. You say yes to everything. You're so brave. And I'm beginning to notice a little follow-through problem with you that I have helped create by relying on you. I want to talk to you about helping your follow-through before it impacts your reputation. That's that corrosion of trust I'm fixing for them. I'm not making it their fault, but they do need to fix it because it's hard to come back from it once you damage your reputation. I might say to someone, you may think that by bringing me more than I asked for, That's awesome. I'm like, what I see is you driving yourself into perfectionism and wasting time, because what you brought me is not what we need for the final vision. It's super good, and I see your investment of time. Next time, trust me that I want to draft. Like, I'm going to turn that perfectionism button off, right? I'm not going to say it's not good enough. It's beautiful. It's just not what I asked for. And in my world, service and courage, bringing me things I didn't ask for isn't helpful. Bringing me what I asked for is helpful. And sometimes people have a hard time with that. So, what could this mean in your organization? This is where, like, the nice organizations still talked about each other behind their backs. Okay, so last thing we're doing is this braving acronym. We're going to go through it in about less than 8 minutes because I want you to have time for questions too, right? So you see it on the back of your worksheet. Same thing. You can judge yourself. You can judge others. B is for boundaries. Boundaries fix reliability issues. Boundaries fix fears and feelings. Boundaries fix stuck in setbacks. When you go, that was the person I was, but that's not who I am now. I get to grow. So with boundaries, the feeling is first, forward, and right. Y'all spending too much time arguing with people about their feelings. You will lose. Don't argue about feelings. We argue about behaviors. So how does this sound? I understand you're disappointed you didn't get that promotion. You tried really hard for it. Comma, it is not okay to undermine the person that did. Boom. But I'm not going to go, you know what, you need to get over it. We picked and it wasn't you. Because that's not going to work. That's just called internalized resentment, right? I don't want that person to be upset and leave. I want them to try for the promotion again. Boundaries work on little ones. Around November, we were doing a webinar because Zoom, right? And suddenly we see a guy mute and he's like talking and unmute. And then suddenly we see Legos fly through the air. And we're like, this is too good to talk. Like, unmute there. So his little 5-year-old showed up in the doorway. Daddy, can we play Legos? And his dad went with, well, I can't talk to you right now because I'm talking to the people on the computer. The 5-year-old's conflict resolution solution was throw the Legos. So we're like, hey, go ahead and unmute, call him over and say. Super okay to be upset. It's probably weird that I'm talking to strangers on the computer and I can't talk to you, right? Feelings, comma. It is never okay to throw Legos. Like, you won't even grow into an age where it's acceptable. Like, it's never okay to throw Legos at people. And the little kid got it. So raise your hand if you're guilty of arguing with someone about their feelings in the last year. You don't have to tell me the story, but how many of you waded into I'm going to argue with you about your feelings? Doesn't work, does it? So boundaries fixes several of the barriers. So the second one, R, is for reliability. We have to get people out of this I'll call you right back mindset. They can't. They've got 3 more meetings to go to. They're lying, right? I mean, we are. I'll call you right back. You're like, you don't have a white space on your calendar till next Tuesday. But I'll call you right back. If corrosion of trust was the barrier to courage, if stuck in setbacks was the barrier to courage, if perfectionism was the barrier to courage, reliability often fixes it. So now I say to people, like yesterday they got told, Tuesday I get to go to Shawnee. I'm super excited. I'm happy to get this to you by end of day Wednesday. I'm not doing that anymore, right? Because I can be unreliable because I don't like details. I don't want to do them at all. And I keep thinking the detail fairy is coming to my house, and I do not have a detail fairy. So I keep being disappointed greatly. A is for accountability. That's everybody's favorite word when they're talking about who? Everybody else. I wish they were more accountable. Oh, I wish she was more accountable. I'm like, how about you? Like, give me chicken head, right? That's what my husband calls it. I go, what? Right? And he knows I'm getting ready to be mad. Accountability is owning your part. So, like a while ago, Emily and I played that little game with, what if I called you in and said, I'd like to talk to you about that deadline we missed on Friday. I know that you said you would get me the report by Thursday. You weren't able to. I'd like to talk about that. I also meant to remind you on Wednesday and check on you, and I'm sorry I didn't. I lost sight of that. That feedback conversation is going to go very differently because I owned a piece of it, right? That I might say, you know what, I know you've struggled with this process and you were really frustrated that we haven't offered the training in the last 6 months. So I appreciate you trying to do your very best, and we had some misses. So you and I are going to work through it together. Hear the difference there, right? I'm owning that you didn't have the resources you needed. So when we act like people aren't tired or COVID doesn't impact them, we're not owning this elephant in the room. And we can't just try harder. Just try harder. Because if you have a perfectionist that already doesn't know how to stop, and you press the try harder button, they may not come see you for a year because you just made it worse, not better. B is for vault. Let's spend a minute here because you're probably like, what's that? Vault is confidentiality on steroids. Vault is do not have the stories in your mouth that are not yours to tell. Like in HR, I mean, we're professional liars. Like, we're trained. And that's not a bad thing, but, sometimes if we're doing a merger and you're like, are we doing a merger? I don't get to say yes. I get to go, I can't imagine why you would think that. Pageant smile. Are we selling the company? Can't imagine why you would think that. Pageant smile. So it's not that. But when you let someone gossip and you don't stop them, that's a vault violation. It doesn't matter that you didn't participate. Y'all, and I've used that thin little line of, well, I was there, but I didn't say it. No. Because remember, if I'm in my values, I don't get to go, la, 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 la. Probably not nice to talk about that person, but I'm not going to say anything. I had to make a very difficult phone call this week to a client that I know something really toxic is going on in their business. Am I legally obligated? No. It's not an area I work in. Am I morally obligated? Yes. And it was super hard. But that's a vault situation, right? If I come to your office and I'm like, did you hear that Mike and Sue are getting a divorce? Y'all have those social butterflies at your job. That's a vault violation. Because here's what I know. For 1 second, my brain goes, ooh, I fit in. I have friends. She came to tell me the gossip. Then what does my brain say? If you'll talk about Mike and Sue, you'll talk about me. And then you start having a reputation of that person that talks out of school, maybe can't be trusted with information like a merger or an acquisition or a big decision, and that becomes problematic. So vault was the letter. When I did this training with her, that was my 2019 focus, that I had gotten a little too casual, talking out of school, and now it's so it's a Jay-Z quote, right? So like Mr. Beyonce, Jay-Z quote that says, don't tell me what they said about me. Tell me why they were comfortable saying it in front of you. And that means people will stop gossiping when you start asking them that. Like, no, I don't care what they said. But tell me why they were comfortable talking about me with you. I want to know that. They'll be like, oh, okay, there's a new day in Gossip Town. So vault was a big one for me. I want people to trust me deeply with big stuff. I is for integrity. That's just being weird. Here's the definition of integrity inside of this work. Courage over comfort, period. So it's not doing the right thing when no one's watching. Those work, but courage over comfort. So if you're being harassed on the street, I have to say something. That client that needed that phone call this week was here. Courage over comfort. I wanted to stay out. I'm like, it feels sticky and gross. And it would feel stickier and more gross if the outcome I think is going to happen happened without them knowing. I wasn't going to let them be blindsided. N is for non-judgment. So the reason we're doing this awkwardness is that Zoom can't see me here. Peekaboo! No peekaboo. So I'm having to go back and forth. I picked this picture for a reason, y'all. It's not no judgment whatsoever. You won't be able to get dressed, right? Your outfit has to match, and we judge, right? Put some jewelry on, we judge. This is non-judgment when people ask for help. That's what's critical. So if I come in your office as a perfectionist and I'm finally got the nerve up and I'm like, I just really need to talk to you, I'm struggling. And you go, well, I can't believe you don't know that. It is over. Like I may not ever come back. If you go, oh, didn't you go to so you have that fancy degree? Didn't they teach you that? Is over. So that picture I picked because it's that you're falling off a cliff level of I've got you. Even if it's the person at work that you thought hated you, and now they're in your office asking you for help, you just don't look shocked. Use my prayer, dear God, please give me spiritual Botox so this person does not know what I'm thinking. Amen. Like I pray that all the time, y'all. So put your spiritual Botox prayer on and go, wow, they're in my office. Because the moment we ask for help, it's a sign of trust. Even if I hate you, I have gotten over that just enough to put this little thread of trust and go, how's this going to go? So you've got to catch me. You don't have to give me the answers and sugarcoat. It's not your job to spoon feed me as an employee. You might say, you know what, Linda, you're so good at this. I bet you know. Maybe this is a competence issue. Why don't you tell me what you think, and then I'll help you walk through it to the right solution. Right? So I'm still teaching people, if you come to me, you should have an answer. I'm not going to babysit, but I'm also saying I've got you. I'm not going to throw you out of my office. I'm not going to send you back to think on it more because you don't know what barrier to courage got in their way. And then the last one is G for generosity, and that is assuming people are doing their best. Ha, 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 ha. So when we did this with her, she's like, I don't believe it at all, but that's what the research showed. So that allowed me to adopt it as, I just fake it till you make it. Even if my body's like, you know what, you actually looked in your rearview mirror and went, that's Linda Clark, and cut me off. Is that true? No. You just missed me. You didn't see me in your blind spot. Your kid's sick, something. But it's probably not that you actually hate me, saw an opportunity to run me off the road, and did it. So generosity has changed me too, to just stop assuming people are doing the worst. I don't assume people are being complacent. I don't assume people are lazy. I've just started asking them, like, what's going on for you right now? How can I support you? So of the 7 letters, what are you going to work on? This is where I start getting a break. So you have 2 things. What letters are you going to work on? Actually, I'm going to make you tell me those so that you can work on this. What are your aha moments from the 90 minutes? What did you learn? What questions do you have? What are you going to focus on when you leave here? This is your moment to really gather this up and make it yours, right? When we go to a luncheon like this, none of us should believe that every word I said applies to you. But everyone, when you have a development opportunity, should find that little tasty chicken nugget goodness, right? The one piece that was like, bam, she was talking to me. So that's what I want to see up here in Minty. You're also welcome at this point. Raise your hands. Tell me some takeaways. Like, let's have a little bit of voice interaction. Zoom, thank y'all for engaging also as well. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the Zoom chat. Kim will get those to me. But also put your notes in Minty because you'll get this as well. So someone tell me about your takeaways. And you can't not answer completely because then I'll obsess all the way home and Krista will have to listen to it. Like, did I do a good job? Was everything? What are your thoughts over here? Because you have just smiled that half smile. So I really want to know, like, what are some of your thoughts during this time? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we pass it on. Like, we create other perfectionists. Yeah. And excellence is awesome, right? I'm not asking you to be average. Like, don't go out in the world and be average. But excellence, healthy striving. Like, great. If an A exceeds expectations, outstanding, then a 91 is good. A 95 is good. A B still exceeds expectations, so that means 81 is good. And some people in here are like, no, it's not. Right? Because we're like, A's, that's what counts. Right. Because you have to be consistent. Like if you decide I'm going to go through life as an 88, but you're consistent, that's where the change comes. You went to 88% of your workouts and gave it 88% of your effort. Diet was dialed in 88% of the time. You get Because what we do is we're like 100, burnout, 0, 12, 62, got tired, 0. One shining 100 day. Like, just be an 88. Pick a number. So look, leave the past in the past. You are not the person, right? Be Alice. I'm not the person I was yesterday. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to have horrible mistakes in your background, grow, learn, and do different. There's a place in Dare to Lead that says, I commit to the practice of empathy and connection, screwing up, circling back, and fixing it. You can't walk out of here going, I'll never do it again. I've already told you, the gargoyles are going to be on the stairs waiting for you. You're just going to repurpose them. You're going to tame them a little bit, repurpose them. Scarcity keeping you out of the arena. So someone's now really clear that if they change their language from I don't have enough what to, you know what, I do have enough. Maybe I don't have enough to do it as perfectly as I wanted, but I can do this. I can do this podcast, and then I'll grow into that podcast. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. Don't listen to your gremlins. I mean, listen to them. They're funny sometimes. But don't take them as like gospel truth. But do hear them. They are trying to protect you. And what they've done in the past worked. So you have to offer a retraining program to them about, I don't need that from you anymore. This is what I need from you. Sit there. I'll be back. You don't have to go away, but I'll be back. Okay? Vault 2.0, arena analogy. So much I want to stick and provide application. It's okay to be wrong. Yeah, y'all really picked up on the perfectionists in the room are like, boom, your arena is too large. Highly possible. So all of these will download. I encourage you to go through and look at what your peers thought and circle the ones that maybe you didn't think of, but you're like, that's totally me. So, a couple of shares or takeaways before we go. Are you going to come up and close us up? Do you have things you want to tell them? Come on up. Anything you want to add? Because I know that it's like a breakneck speed in 90 minutes. Okay, so look for your resource email. I hope to see some of you in June. See your people. We're going to be in this amazing room again, so yay. So I'm going to sit down. Thanks.
Thank you to Miss Linda. This is the second time that I have got to participate in this, and again, I've just learned so much more how to apply this into my life, so I hope all of you took away something today. So thank you again, Miss Linda. We do have a few to acknowledge. Krista Scamahorn from Francis Tuttle Technology Center. She was so kind to help us get all of this booked and everything ready to go. And in your folders, you have probably saw this little flyer. Krista is going to be our speaker in June, and she is fantastic. So please join us in June. Registration will open up in a few months, and we're really excited to have Krista come back and speak to us as our keynote. We'd like to thank the Farmer's Daughter Market for lunch today. They did a fantastic job. So if you are ever in Tecumseh, please go and eat there. They are fantastic as well. We would like to thank Project Safe for coming out today. If you did not get a chance to stop by their booth on your way out, make sure that you do that. We also want to thank our leadership at First United Bank and Gordon Cooper, so Sarah Weeks and Paul Bass, for allowing Amanda and I to do this. We're really excited about this. This is something we've wanted to do for a while, and we're just so thankful that we have awesome community members who want to participate in this. So thank you for showing up and supporting this idea that we've had for a while. We really appreciate you guys. Okay, I covered that. Like Linda was saying, in June, we are so excited to have Linda come back for a 2.5-day workshop to dig deeper into Dare to Lead. Registration will open April 1st. It's not an April Fool's joke. It really will open. It will be $200 to attend. And as Linda and Krista can probably tell you, that is a steal. So please register. If this is something that you want to dig in a little bit deeper on, there will be limited seating. So there won't be a ton of spots available, but we really hope that you feel like this is something that you want to continue to learn in and dig in a little bit deeper into yourself. So we really hope that you register for that. There are flyers with all the information on the desk up there where you signed up for door prizes, so please take one.
Oh, woohoo, door prizes.
Okay, so for door prizes, we did a copy of the Dare to Lead book, and we also have $20 gift certificate to Heavenly Grind, another female-owned business in our community. So Jamie Scott is our first winner. You can come get it. You ran off with my books. Kelly Clay. Amber Himley.
Who was the third one?
Do what? Amber Himley. There you go. And Rachel Milo.
Yay!
And for a final little closing out treat for everybody, Heavenly Grind is out in the lobby, and they have hot chocolate or iced lattes for you to grab as you head out. So,
Like, woo,
thank you guys for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So well done. So well done.
Hello. If somebody dropped a portfolio, I have it up here.